All right, so officially beginning our session for today, which is all about answering your own words questions, implicit meaning, and reasoning questions. In this section, we will learn different ways of answering our own words questions, which are the kinds of questions our candidates find most difficult, and the questions that test your ability to answer implicit meaning and reasoning. Mostly, the implicit meaning and reasoning questions are the ones which require you to join the pieces of information given in different parts of the passage and then writing your own answer. All right. They will also ask you for reasons, as the word suggests, but usually the meaning of or the answer is usually hidden. It's implicit, it's covered. It's not really written upfront that you can just spot in the passage and answer. All right. So in today's session, we'll be using the reading insert The Garage from the past papers and the question paper that we have already used from the previous session. All right. If there are any questions, you can also post them here under the discussion comment section. All right. Now let's head towards our presentation. Okay. Let me share it here. Okay. So in this session, we'll be mainly talking about. So we had learned the explicit meaning questions already and how to answer them. Now is the time for us to learn the implicit meaning and reasoning questions. All right. So we have Ishal here as well.
Assalamu alaikum, miss.
Walaikum Assalam, Ishal. How are you?
I'm good, miss. How are you?
Better, Alhamdulillah. All right. So in today's session, we'll be covering two things: yesterday's session and today's session. All right. As I was giving an overview of today's session, we'll be working on answering own words questions so as to fulfill the question's requirements and score full marks here. Implicit meaning questions and reasoning questions, which will require you to join the information given in different parts of the passage. Sometimes you may also need to use your inferencing skills by using your common sense and general knowledge, and by combining that sense with the information given in the passage, and then draw the meaning of the answer. And of course, you'd be required to answer the questions in your own words. Reasoning questions will be also very similar. They'll be asking you to give reasonings which will be based on information given in two different parts of the passage or two different pieces of information. All right. So the first focus is of today's session is our answering own words questions. All right. Now, okay. The first, okay, so this particular question is okay. Let's take a look at this one. Implicit meaning is the first one. Sorry. So we are going to go back to paragraph number 1 today, but our focus is to answer the implicit meaning question, implicit meaning plus reasoning questions, okay? The question is 3A. Why do you think the writer did not remember the event described by her mother? Now, although it is a 1 mark question, but if you notice, it's got the command word why, which is mainly the reasoning question, right? But remember, it is implicit because, first of all, it is asking you to use your own thinking here and your reasoning skills, your inferencing skills, and answer by looking at the implicit meaning. Because it is not very clearly written in the passage that she did not remember the event that her mother had described. Okay, so let's take a look at the first thing. When we have this question, why? The first word or the or any other any in any place the question asks you for why, so remember we need to include because in our answer. That is one big strategy that I use. Okay, so save your time, go and look for the reasons. In this particular question, we did answer some reasoning questions yesterday, but they were explicit. All right. Now, she says that she did not really quite remember, she did not remember the event that her mother had described. So let's go back to the passage, paragraph number 1, and we're going to answer the question there and then. All right. So, who would like to read the paragraph?
Paragraph 1.
Yes.
One day, my mother told me about an accident I nearly had in my early childhood. We'd been shopping when I was only 3 years old, and when we came back, she drove the car into the garage, telling me to stay in my seat in the back of the car while she took the shopping from the front seat. She did that and was just about to slam the door shut when she saw that I had got out of the car. I was standing beside her with my hand holding onto the inside edge of the door frame. I very nearly squashed your fingers, she said. She held up the thumb and the first finger of her right hand narrowly parted. There was a short silence. I was thinking that perhaps I should apologize for being the kind of child who never did as she was told, persistently putting herself in the way of danger.
Okay, so let's move on to the next line. It has been like mistakenly written in the exam paper. Although I have no memory of that event, I do remember the
I do,
garage. Hmm.
I do remember the
Yeah.
girl.
So we've got the entire information here. Now, as the question says, why do you think the writer did not remember the event her mother described? Now we need to join the pieces of information together, okay? So let's start.
Because it was a early childhood.
Okay, it was her early childhood, yes, exactly. And then she supports it with another reason to describe the early childhood.
Yes, 3 years old.
There we go, okay? So, although it was written somewhere here that she did not really remember, and she has not given the reason here, we needed to pick the information from the early part of the passage, okay, and join it together. So, early childhood as well as only 3 years old. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the mark scheme and I'll read out the answer to you, okay? This was question number. Okay, I don't. Let me just check which question number it was. Do you have any questions about such questions like implicit meaning questions? Okay. Any questions? Okay, so I'm going to read the answer now. According to Mark's scheme, it says she was only 3 years old. Only is optional, it's in brackets. Another option that's given as an answer is it happened in her early childhood. So even 3 years old is fine, early childhood is fine. Or even if you just write she was young, it will be okay. All right, clear? Let's move on to the next question, which is now
Yes.
our most challenging question. First of all, tell me how many, like both of you, do you get it correct all the time, or sometimes it goes incorrect as well when you compare the answers with mark scheme? Own words question.
Onwards question, it goes on like wrong sometimes.
Okay, and Ishal, what about you?
Misunderstand.
You do understand, but when you write, when you attempt the questions, like, and you compare it with the mark scheme, usually what is the result?
Miss, the result of my answer, Miss, it's accurate, and I myself understand
Mm-hmm.
like what I've done, and I'm able to implement it in further questions.
Okay, great. All right. So I want you to now think aloud the way I did last time, okay? And then I'm going to explain it to you. Or maybe you can like jump in and share with me as you understand, all right, Ishal, because you get that correct. Now, this is my strategy that I teach to my students, which helps them understand it quite well. Let's take a look at the question first. Paragraph number 2, 4a. The writer thought that the garage was, and then you've got the quotation here, okay? A fascinating but slightly frightening place. All right, so the question will always give you a phrase or a very short phrase from the passage with the reference to the paragraph, and it will ask you to explain in your own words. Now, explain in your own words would be always in bold letters. All right, what we need to do is how she felt about the garage. Now, what are we supposed to do? The command is to explain. Clear? In whose words? Our own words. What exactly do we need to explain? What do we need to explain here?
A fascinating but slightly frightening place. Like her feelings about the garage, but they have.
Given us a reference. Okay, so we need to explain
Yeah.
her feelings about the garage with reference to the quotation given to us. All right, so a fascinating but slightly frightening place. The quotation is given to you. Now, it is usually let me check, it's a 2 mark question, isn't it?
It
Uh,
must be at
yeah, it has to be 2 mark question. Sorry, I have written it wrong. I was just copying and pasting. It is a 2 mark question. All right. So 1 mark is for one word and 1 mark is for the explanation of the other word. All right. So just don't get confused with that. So let me just quickly fix it. All right. What happened? Oh,
Miss, I have a question.
yes.
Like here in this question, they have mentioned like they have given us the words which we have to change in our own words, the
Hmm.
fascinating but slightly frightening place. But sometimes they do not give us like they do not. We have to find the words by ourselves. For example, if
Yes.
they remove the first line, the reference, and they
Hmm.
only write the question as explain in your own words, have
Yeah.
feelings about the garage. How are we supposed to like find the keywords from the
Acha,
passage?
okay. Now this used to happen in the paper pattern before 2018. All right. Earlier, when they used to
Oh my
ask you to
God.
give your answers by giving your own example, like using your own words, it used to happen when there was no reference given to you, and that was like before 2018. If you see past papers from 2018 till 2022, you would see that there is always a reference line given to you here. Now, coming to this one, when there was no line given to you as a
Okay.
reference, just go and check some papers from 2017, 2016, 15. In that case, you would be, such a question would be like, such an example would be given in the passage, and you had to go back to that passage, and the keywords would be like the reasoning was given to you there in the passage, and then you had to just pick that line, and from there you had to explain those two words. All right. So that was double the work. It was relatively tough, as in, okay. But since
Okay.
we have now the reference line, so I'm like just giving you a hint that it is already given to you. The writer has exactly given, examiner has given to you the line of action here. First step is to identify the keywords in the quotation given. Now, I talked about 2 to 3 things here. Tell me, is it clear to you? Is it readable for you all?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Both of them. Let me just
Yes,
change the
miss.
Yes,
size
ma'am.
of. Okay. All right. So here is the thing. First step is to, and please write it down as I share it with you. Make sure that you write down and take notes. All right. All right. First step is to identify the keywords in the quotation given. It is a formula that I'm giving to you, and it will give you 100% solid foundation to solve and attack these questions. Okay. First step is for us to identify the keywords given in the quotation. So we now know that the first word is fascinating and the second word is frightening. Yes? Now, what do
Yes,
we need to
miss.
do? I
Yes,
call
miss.
it, let me just edit that my technique here, and I say that next, all right, and I'm going to write it in capital so you remember, crack open them. Now, have you ever seen an egg crack? Have you ever cracked an egg? Yes?
Yes.
All right. So we are going to now assume that these are hard shell eggs, these keywords, and we need to crack them open. And how do we do that? We are not going to use them in our explanation at all. We are going to come up with the alternative synonyms that you all know. But what happens is that students, when they write synonyms, they get like 5 or 10 synonyms online, and then they replace it with any synonym that they get. What happens is that sometimes the meaning changes altogether, and it turns out to be incorrect information that's given in the explanation. So, first of all, try to replace it. And what we are going to do is we are going to replace the keywords that I have come up with, like, of course, our synonyms. And then we're going to read out the sentence together and we'll see, does it really, really help answer the question? All right. Yes, beta.
But miss, if like the examiner gives us a really hard
Hmm.
question of, for example, um, he has given us the two keywords, gross take, misalliance.
Hmm.
The one who does not know the meaning to this, how is he or she supposed to answer this?
Okay.
Because it is very
Grotesque.
difficult to find the
Yeah.
answer.
Okay. Grotesque and
Misalliance.
Miss Alliance. Can you just type it out? Which paper are you talking about?
No, I'm asking generally.
Okay, grotesque is like what? First of all, you have the reference to the in the example already. If it says grotesque and frightening, let's say. Grotesque, we know. Okay, some of you may not even know, but you would have the reference with with this one. So even if we say it is fascinating, if we do not even know the meaning of the fascinating, but we've got another difficult alien word, but I would know, oh, it is about the feeling, so it must be a feeling word. Now, is it a positive feeling or a negative feeling? Grotesque, we know it's an ugly word. It's an ugly distorted image, right? So
Yes.
now we know about it. But if what if I know nothing about a fascinating, but I still know, oh, it is somewhat about her feelings. Now, if it is really close to the positive connotations or the negative connotations, I have no idea. So that is why we say that the best way is to actually read your past papers as much as you can, and all the words all the words, not just the five vocabulary words that are given to you in the vocabulary passage, but all the new words on a daily basis. Because what happens is that sometimes you never know which word comes in your paper and you already know, but the rest do not. All right. But this has made our life
Yes.
very much easier now. Right. Okay. Has anybody written a comment here? Okay. Impressive or gruesome? All right. It's got like both the words. Yes. Both the meanings. Oh, okay. Today we were talking about there is this word I have like I started that in my school. So what I do is I usually go and post a word of the day in the hallway, and today I wrote deliriously. Deliriously. Now this particular word has two different meanings. One is wild and crazy, which is totally different. All right, totally different. And another meaning is ecstatic and euphoric, very very extremely happy, extremely overjoyed, enthralled. And both have different meanings, completely opposite, right? But it all depends on the context as well. So you need the information that is accompanying your target words. So if our target word is fascinating, let's try to replace it with the synonym that we got here, and let's say if it really gives us that meaning. Mm, yeah, yeah, exactly, euphoria. But the word is delirious. That's what I posted today, and the students wrote down sentences very easily because I had given the two different meanings to them. So some of them actually meant wild and crazy and hysteric, and some of them meant euphoric or extremely happy or ecstatic. Okay, so so your
Yes.
context matters the most. Let's come to this one now. Back to the question. The writer thought that the garage was a fascinating but slightly frightening place. Explain in your own words how the writer felt about the garage. Fascinating. Now, fascinating could be attractive. It could be captivating. It could be interesting. Now, can you replace it and then read the sentence quickly? And frightening could be scary, terrifying, and apprehensive. Let's try to um, replace the words, write the answers in the chat box, and then comment on how she felt about the garage. So I want you to answer this question by replacing it. The words are right in front of you, okay? And about the garage, in my own words, meaning I need to draw key ideas from the keywords. So those two keywords are the target keywords. I need to crack them open. And after I crack them open, I need to draw key ideas from those keywords. So a quotation is like a fascinating but slightly frightening place. So let's do it in 3 minutes. Is that okay? Yes? Use the chat box, please. And I'm here in the chat box. Okay. With catchy and terrifying, with petrifying or traumatizing place. Okay. But we are not repeating the word fascinating. So let's replace it. A fascinating but slightly frightening place. An attractive but a little scary place. Or a petrifying or traumatizing. That is also good. Mm. Now, fascinating can be catchy, but it will completely change the meaning if you write catchy. We need to think about why does she find it fascinating. She was a little child and she was kind of intrigued and interested in it. If something is fascinating, it usually is catchy. It usually draws the attention of the person. It usually attracts the person, right? So can we, yeah, okay. Another version, can you think of any other version? Yeah, yeah. Ishal, I'm waiting for your response as well. And then I'll go back to the mark scheme and I'll read out the sentence, okay? Beguiling, but a slightly grisly place. Okay, beguiling would be mostly deceiving. Okay, remember, beguiling is a word that will completely change the meaning of the word fascinating. Let's say I was fascinated by the beauty of the stars in the sky. I was attracted, I was intrigued, and I have to include the concept of a little curiosity. If we go to the passage and see what was going on actually here, okay, so I'll go back to the passage and go to paragraph number 2, and now we are going to make sense out of it. So we'll see if the word beguiling or catchy makes sense, okay? Do they really fit there? Okay. I thought it a fascinating but slightly frightening place with oil stains thick and pungent and on the concrete floor, which, if looked at one way, could transform into rainbows, shiny and fleeting. It had dark red doors, etc., etc. Okay. Now, the reason she finds it fascinating was what? Does she take any action when she finds it fascinating? But although she was kind of scared, frightening is easy. It was scared, a little scary, terrifying. But for fascinating, we need to connect it with, if I say it was beguiling, it would be, it was deceiving. Will that be correct?
Uh,
It will
I don't
change the
think so.
meaning. Okay, it will change the meaning completely, right? Now let's take a look at the word catchy. Catchy also is kind of close. What
But
about
Miss,
it's
how
actually
about
the deep
enchanting?
fit.
enchanting? Is right. Enchanting would be better because it does not have the misleading connotations. Okay, that would be acceptable, although mark scheme says no, but it would be acceptable as such. Yes, Yaya, you were saying something.
Um, no, miss, I am clear.
Okay, intrigued. Whenever, okay, here is one word. When you're drawn towards something, you're fascinated. So if you just look up the word fascinating quickly or fascinate and then give me the meanings of the word, okay? And now you need to comment on her feelings, how she was feeling about the garage. Okay. Fascinating means extremely interesting. Yes, exactly. Okay. So when something is extremely interesting, it really holds your attention for some time. Okay. It attracts you. So we can say attractive, you can say interesting, you can also say that she was drawn to it because we need to comment on her feelings here. Astonishing would be surprising. We can't write astonishing. Okay, because it will completely change the meaning there. All right, so that is why I said let's try to replace the words by writing the synonyms again and again, and this is the only way for you to practice. All right. Frightening could be scary, terrifying, apprehensive, okay, up to some extent. And now I'm going to read the answers from the passage. It's from the mark scheme. It says, but she was drawn, attracted, intrigued, also afraid, scared, apprehensive. One thing, please remember, if you just write here, let me just display it properly first.
Excuse me, Miss.
Mhm.
How about mesmerizing?
Mesmerizing has a magical effect to it, not an attractive. It has a different range. You see, yes, the connotations are positive, but it has like extreme range of interest. Okay, like something that has taken over you, like spellbinding, spellbound when you're spellbound by something. It is that enchanting also has that magical touch to it. All right, so you try and practice and you will understand how to actually attempt this question. One more thing, she thought that the garage was a fascinating but slightly frightening place. You can continue using the word but, you can also use the word yet, because fascinating, attractive, and frightening and scary, they are two opposite feelings. But you do not need to, you should not omit the explanation of the word but. You can continue using this one. We don't have to really replace this particular word, but using the word yet should show that she was kind of feeling mixed feelings about it. So you can say that the writer had mixed feelings, and she was feeling different feelings for about the garage. She found it attractive, she was drawn to it, yet she was afraid of it, yet she was scared to go into it. Got it? Okay, let's take a look at another question from here. Why do you think that the writer describes the museum with its postage stamps, dead insects, and pieces of rock as childish? Again, this is a is that a own words question or implicit meaning question? It's a meaning reasoning question. Okay, so we're going to go to the passage number, paragraph number 2, and read it. And we have the question here. What are we supposed to do? We have to give our own thinking here. I was supposed to write it over there. Okay, apologies. Why do you think the writer describes the museum with its postage stamps, dead insects, and pieces of rock as childish? So, what are we supposed to do? Go back to the passage and read the line where she's saying she actually found it childish. Okay, Ishal, I would like you to read this part here from here.
Miss, from where exactly?
Second line. I thought it fascinating.
I thought it a fascinating but slightly frightening place, with oil stains thick and pungent on the concrete floor, which, if looked at one way, could transform into rainbows, shiny and fleeting. It had dark red doors and a window behind which a confused bird once became trapped, its wings flapping incessantly. My father wrestled with the catch, which had been painted shut, while the bird dived again and again into the glass, unable to comprehend that it would not yield. Finally, the catch gave away, and the bird flew out, swooping once over the flower bed, then away over the hedge. In my memory, the garage was a cobwebby, dim place filled with spades and other gardening tools, an axe hanging on a high nail. One summer, we set up a childish museum in the garage, arranging our exhibits on the workbench. They included, among other mismatched and valueless things, some old postage stamps, several dead insects, and some pieces of rock.
Okay, so here at the end of the passage, she says that in my memory, the garage was a cobwebby, dim place filled with spades and other gardening tools, an axe hanging on a high nail. One summer, we set up a childish museum in the garage, arranging our exhibits on the workbench. Now she's saying that they were actually like role playing, and they had their exhibits on the workbench as if they were a part of a museum. And she says they included, among other things, there were some mismatched and valueless things. She calls them mismatched and valueless things. Some old postage stamps, several dead insects, and some pieces of rock. The question is, why do you think she calls them childish? Them or the museum? Let me read the question again. Where is it? Yeah, she describes the museum with these things, and she says it was childish. Yeah. All right, so here are the lines for you to think about. The last three lines.
because because these
Yeah.
were mismatched and these were valueless things.
Yeah, okay. And usually, if you just notice and look at the value of those things, they were like quite childish because it makes sense. Um, Dead insects. Who would display dead insects in a museum? Postage stamps, old postage stamps which had no worth as such, and some pieces of rock which were not of any sort of any value, right? Now I'm going to read the question from the mark scheme and like answer, and let's see what we have done here. All right, it was 4C. Okay, now the question's answer is that you can use they, the items or exhibits were mismatched or valueless. Perfectly fine, you've got the answer right there. Coming to the next one. The writer told her sister to keep watch at the garage door. Explain one, what the writer asked her sister to do and why. Reasoning question. right there. Okay, you've got a separate space for one and for two. All right. The writer told her sister to keep watch at the garage door. So you've got the quotation already. You do not need to use your own words. You've got space for explanation for the first part and the reasoning for the second part. What the writer asked her sister to do. Again, you need to use your reasoning skills here. The explicit meaning skills here. And why? You need to use your reasoning skills here. Now I'm going to go to paragraph number 3. We're going to read it and answer the question. So I'm going to read it a little fast so that you could also understand. All right. Our cat chose the garage as the place to give birth to her kittens. Awed and delighted, our family visited her and her new family to worship at the side of the cardboard box, which was their temporary home. We watched the four squirming bodies as they burrowed into their mother's grey striped fur. My mother instructed my sister and me not to touch the kittens, not yet, and we nodded gravely. As soon as she had left the shrine and gone back to the kitchen, however, I told my sister to keep watch at the garage door. I told my sister to keep watch at the garage door. I reasoned with her that obviously there was no way I was going to leave those kittens untouched. No way at all. The sheer joy of plunging my hands into the box and lifting up all four kittens in a mewing, breathing mass and burying my face in their softness, they never walked on pause. How could I pass up this opportunity? So we've got this target line here. My mother instructed my sister and me not to touch the kittens, not yet, and we nodded gravely. We agreed, okay? As soon as she left the shrine and gone back to the kitchen, however, I told my sister to keep watch at the garage door. Why did she? Okay, what exactly was the question? The question was why exactly she asked her to keep a watch. First of all, what the writer asked her to do when she says keep a watch. So you need to like explain this part. I asked my sister to keep a watch at the garage door. So what exactly did she ask her sister to do? It is written. It is right there. Here is the answer. You just need to change the words from keep and watch and you need to explain the meaning of the words keep watch. So what would it be? Keep an eye, to check, to alert her, watch out if the mother was coming back. Basically, what was happening? She wanted to touch the kittens, and as opposed to what was expected, she had, of course, she had agreed to what mother had asked them to do. The mother had advised not them to touch the kittens. But what she did was, she was planning to touch the kittens. And just to make sure that the mother doesn't catch them touching the kittens, she asked, catch her touching the kittens, she decided to ask her sister to act as a guard, all right, to keep an eye and to check if the mother or father were coming in, um and so that she would be alerted. That's that. Why? Simple. She wanted to touch the kittens and she had also always also agreed to her mother that she would not do it at all. All right, clear?
Yes.
All right, next thing here, we've got another question. Just a second. Own words question, I again. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The cat looked at me with eyes that were alert, but which also seemed to me, to be full of forgiveness. Explain in your own words what the writer saw in the cat's look. All right. Now, step number 1. What are we supposed to do? Remember, what was the first step to do? Underline or identify the target words. All right. First of all, in the quotation, are we given the quotation?
Yes, please.
All right. First of all, let's say we know that the first step is to identify the command word, and the command word is that we need to explain in our own words, which means that cannot repeat the target um, words from which we need to draw key ideas. All right. What do we need to explain? What the writer saw in the cat's look. So she observed something in the cat's look with reference to this quotation that's given to us. The cat looked at me with eyes that were alert, but which also seemed to me to be full of forgiveness. Can you identify two keywords that we need to answer? And of course, we have
Yes.
got one, like 2 marks here. It's not 1 mark.
Alert and forgiveness.
There we go. Okay, we've got alert and full of forgiveness. Right, there we go. All right, so now we're going to go back to the paragraph and let's read what we have and we'll explain it in our own words. So, step number two, we are going to crack open the keywords there. I'll just quickly jump to the line that we have, paragraph number four. Okay, so she was touching the kittens already, and she was touching all of them. They were like newborn kittens. The cat looked at me with eyes that were alert, but which also seemed to me to be full of forgiveness. She knew it wasn't possible for me to follow my mother's edict. Oh, sorry. There was no way I could. She purred when I gently touched the kittens, stretching out an ecstatic paw to touch me on the wrist. All right. So if you just connect with the entire context here, what exactly did she, the writer, noticed in the cat's eyes?
That she was alarmed.
Very good. Number one is alarmed. Okay. Alert, alarmed, perfect. And can we repeat the word
Full of
forgiveness? Can we repeat the word
this can be
forgiveness?
like mercy or kindness.
Yes. Yes, of course. Now, you replace it. So you give me a complete answer. Can you do it in the chat box, both of you?
Okay.
All right. Um, Ishal, I'm also expecting an answer from you. Okay, in the chat box, please. Okay, the cat looked at her with alarming and kind, merciful eyes. Okay. Now, I gave you one idea here. Um, Alarming will be okay as such, but the mark scheme says something else. I would accept it as a teacher because alarm would be the kind of perfect replacement of the word alert also. All right. What mark scheme says is it's what the mark scheme says, carefully and cautiously. I'd be saying, okay, alert or cautious is better. Alarm is also fine. We'll not repeat the word alert. Now, what it shows is that when the writer touched the kittens, when she picked up the kittens, it was it was alarmed. It was cautious. It was consciously aware and ready to take an action in case something goes wrong. That is what exactly alert is, right? When you're alert, what happens? You're actually in a position to take an action if something goes wrong or if something goes unplanned or something that's unfortunate that happens, right? So alert would be that, but in if you say alarm, alarm will have a slightly a negative connotation, but it also gives the same meaning as such. So I would say the examiners would also accept this answer. They should. Coming to the next one is when she says eyes full of forgiveness. The cat looked at her with nerving, cautious, okay, and soft, accepting eyes. Now, why did you use the word accepting? I like it, and it's giving me like a different perspective. And soft is also okay, forgiveness, but forgiveness is something else, right? So, what did you do, Ishal? Kind and merciful. Yes, that's also
Uh,
okay.
Miss, for me, merciful has kind of like an accepting and like a letting go sound to it. So
Hmm.
I just chose the word accepting because that would mean that her alertness was
Hmm.
slowly evolving
Yeah,
into a letting go manner.
perfectly fine. Allowing is also good. Exactly. Now, here, who was the authority here? Was
The
child,
cat.
the cat. Okay, so here that is the reason that the writer has used the word forgiveness. So with mercy, with kindness, so it was the exactly, it was the transition from being alert, from being alarmed, from being cautious to being merciful, allowing. So here, actually, the writer was, the cat was the authority, and that was the sign that it could allow the writer to pick up the kittens. All right. According to examiner's mark scheme, it says she allowed her to pick up the kittens. She understood her to pick up the kittens. She didn't mind her picking up the kittens. All right. Using the word merciful, okay, that is also perfectly fine because this is what she saw in the cat's eyes. Allowing would be fine. Even you said merciful, okay, kind, allowing and giving, accepting rather. Accepting would also be all right. Okay. Exactly. Yes. She allowed her to pick up the kittens. She accepted her request to pick up the kittens. But rather request would be like too literal. And the girl didn't really make a request. She had already picked up the kittens. So it would change the meaning altogether. Okay, Shal, so avoid using the word request here. But here, since the cat was the authority, so she allowed her. All right. So allowing is the most simple meaning to it. Okay, coming to this one, tomorrow, inshallah, we're going to in the next session, we're going to work on the vocabulary questions with the next part, which is going to be on Monday. Okay, here is the thing. You have got this quiz for the vocabulary part. It is pretty easy. All right, so there's this one assignment that's posted. You would be able to see this one, and don't worry about the vocabulary questions also. Okay, because we're going to go ahead and do it in very maybe 10 minutes or so. Now, one task for you and a tip for you: when you attempt your vocabulary questions from past papers, please have a journal or somewhere where you're actually marking those words, because many a times it happens is that those vocabulary words turn out to be such good usage vocabulary usage collection that you can easily use in your narratives and other compositions. Okay, you should have a collection of vocabulary from past papers. Question number 888, is it 8 or 9? It's question number 9. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, it's 8 rather. Yeah. Okay, so question number 8. So if you have got the printed copies of the past papers, it is a better idea to actually note it down somewhere in a diary or a register, and highlight your key sentences where the target words have been used in the paragraph. Okay, any questions in today's session?
No, miss.
Okay, what did you learn today?
Allah Hafiz.
Okay, all right, yeah, yeah.
Miss, may I leave?
Yeah, Ishal, okay. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Allah
quick
Hafiz,
recap.
miss.
Allah Hafiz, Ishal.
Miss, in this session, we actually learned how to answer the implicit and the own words questions, and in the implicit we and in the questions of own words we learned about how to like you told us that they will from 2018 onwards they will be giving us they have been giving us a quotation for the own words, and
Hmm.
we basically we have to mark those keywords. It is
Yes.
basically of 2 marks, and
Hmm.
we have to mark like highlight those two words which they are requiring about for us to write the synonyms
Hmm.
of.
Exactly.
So, for example, we like practice some of them, and then you told us that there are some of the implicit questions in which we have to explain, but in that would not have to use in our own words,
Yeah. Okay.
and there are reasons for which they are required.
All right. Okay, one more thing. Just remember the steps of using the explanation in your keywords, explanation in your own words, answers. Also, remember that there are times when you may not be able to use all the synonyms that you find of those target keywords. Okay. So, you'd have to actually replace the synonyms and then check the meaning after reading it out loud. Okay. In case, and
Okay,
also do
miss.
practice your 2018 and before papers so that you understand, if in case you're not given a quotation, how you'd find it. Usually you'd find the reasoning in the same paragraph. Okay, and all you
Okay,
have to do is
miss.
just repeat that. Yeah, write it down in the
Okay, miss.
answer.
Uh,
Lafis beta. Okay.
Allah.
Lafis. मूसा बेटा उर्दू का काम शुरू करें।